It's Matt with Forte Films and Stills here. Unfortunately, I've been experiencing a ton of gear failure in the last couple of weeks, so I had to order a new Panasonic S1r since my other cameras are in the shop getting fixed right now. This camera is what I use as my primary camera for wedding photography, portrait photography, all things photography. I just made the switch this past year. You can see our video later why I made the switch from Nikon. I'm gonna show you how I set my camera up for every single wedding and shoot that I do. So this camera is straight out of the box right now. We're gonna zoom in really close on this and I'm gonna show you exactly what I do to set up my camera. Okay, I have my camera conveniently set up on a tripod so it's easy to film. I don't normally pull out the dad tripod, but okay, so we're coming into our main settings here. This is one of the things I love about Panasonic is their whole system is just so easy to navigate and understand. So first things first, you know, photo style, we're keeping that as standard. Metering mode, I haven't worried too much about. I used to always use spot metering, not anymore because I use constant preview because I'm using the back LCD screen to do all of my photography now. I rarely use the viewfinder. Aspect ratio, whatever. Picture quality, here's a big one. We want to change that to RAW. I want the biggest, largest file size I can so I can edit everything later. One area autofocus moving speed fast. I've had to change that before on cameras. That's one I always like to check. I do use autofocus assist light. I have that all the time for weddings where it's dark during the dance and it shoots out a little red light that helps the camera focus. I find that to be very helpful and not that annoying. You gotta be careful though, sometimes it goes off at times you don't want it to. Flash modes, I take it off of TTL. I wanna shoot everything manual. I like to control everything myself. I know how it all works. Bracketing off, this can get you messed up. I had an issue once with my Nikon where there was a bracketing button on the side I kept hitting and it'd screw me up. Silent mode I keep off. I like my camera to be loud for whatever reason. Image stabilizer, I'm gonna experiment with having it off. I get a lot of really wonky pictures and I think it's the stabilizer. So shooting handheld, you get that a lot. So I'm gonna turn that off for now. I might turn that back on later. With the Panasonic, you can easily toggle between your burst settings. So I like to do my first one at a medium and my second one at a low. I don't want to risk having my camera buffering stuck in the middle of a wedding ceremony. I'd much rather be shooting a lower frequency of shots so that my camera can stay caught up. Shutter type, mechanical, I usually stick with that. No rhyme or reason to it. I used to know all the details about all of that, but I am rarely in a situation where I have to go higher than 1/8,000th of a second shutter speed. The reason being, I'm shooting in shade where I have good light during the day. You know, maybe if you're a landscape photographer, or you're shooting something in the middle of the day, you're getting some crazy light coming off of a lake or something, maybe you'd want to go to electronic, but I just haven't done that personally. So we don't need to even go through video. So we're gonna come to the top here, the other settings. ISO increments, I always keep that at 1/3 just because I like to have as much flexibility as possible and limit ISO as much as possible. I do notice with the Panasonic, the grain is really large. It can perform in low light, but the grain is super large and super noticeable. So I try to keep my ISO as low as possible. Color space, sRGB, I always keep it like that. Focus, shutter priority. I haven't messed around with this too much, but I'm gonna keep it as it is for now. I might change that later. There's some things I still need to mess around with on this camera. I switch it to lock hold. Sometimes, you know, I like to recompose my shots, and so if you hold it down, then it's locked in at focus wherever you focused it. I think that's a cool feature. I don't ever use manual focus. I think that'd be problematic. Pinpoint autofocus settings, I rarely go into that. Shutter autofocus, I focus back button. The reason being, even if it's out of focus, I still want the camera to take the shot. A lot of times with shutter autofocus, it won't take the shot unless it absolutely locks focus. I don't like that. I want the security of the shot still happening, even if it's a little bit out of focus. I'm gonna turn eye sensor autofocus on. I use that time to time at weddings or portrait sessions. I find it's better if you're just doing, you know, bride and groom stuff or senior pictures or something. I'll use that often. Auto review, I have it off. I can go review it later. I don't want it to be screwing up my camera and bogging it down. Constant preview on, I find that very important. I had to turn it on this camera actually. Just for accuracy with exposure, I'm in fast moving environments when I'm shooting. I think it's an important thing to be as accurate as possible in camera. So I always have that on. It also helps you in post. You know you nailed your exposure because you had constant preview on. Level gauge, I like to keep that on personally. It helps also in post-processing to be able to make sure I'm dialing in images at perfect level. That saves you a whole lot of time in editing. Once in a while I do turn on the grid line. I'm not gonna do it today. I don't really care all that much. I don't put the exposure meter on just because I'm doing constant preview. Once in a while, I've gone back and forth with having zebra pattern and blinking highlights. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Just the way I shoot, I usually underexpose, so. Copyright information, at this point, I used to always keep it in there. I put it in Lightroom, and then that's helpful too. You know, if I'm shooting for someone else or something and they need the copyrights, then it doesn't screw it up if I put it in camera. I keep all of this the same. I've been keeping the beeps on to help assist me in autofocus. I don't use headphones. Once in a while I use Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. Good thing to do is check the firmware, make sure it's up to date. So the next thing that I want to do in here, which is a very important thing with Panasonic, is we go to the top dial here, switch from single autofocus to continuous autofocus. We're going to come into focus settings here in that first setting. When I first got this camera, I was quite disappointed with the autofocus. I thought it was extremely laggy and slow. I've shot on tons of different cameras. I still do from time to time shoot on different cameras. I just shot a couple sessions in weddings on Nikon again. Single autofocus is laggy. That being said, if you switch to continuous, you can mess with the sensitivity settings. So they've got different settings and they kind of give you a little brief idea of what the settings are for. You can even customize these if you want. I'm gonna go with 3 because that's generally worked pretty well for me. I do adjust that from time to time based on what I'm doing, what I'm shooting, but 3 usually is a solid starting point for me. I do use continuous a lot more than I did. A lot of times I'll use it for people walking down the aisle. It works fantastically if you're on a tripod, but since I'm going handheld at weddings, it's not always dialed because I'm moving all over the place. There's awesome times to use it. There's times it's not. People get kind of heated about it. They think, oh, well, it's such an incredible system, whatever. Great if you're on a tripod doing landscape or sports photography. Tough if you're a portrait wedding photographer going handheld for everything. But that's what I set it at. It's funny, I was looking at camera rentals on lensrentals.com the other day, and the owner of Lens Rentals makes a comment about every single piece of gear and camera on their website. And I read his the other day about the S1r, and he had the same exact experience where he was quite disappointed with the single autofocus, and then once he started adjusting some of those custom settings for continuous, then he was quite pleased with the results. And it's kind of been the same thing for me. It's not bad enough that I would switch again, but it's not something that I would say is a major strength of the camera. But that just about does it then. Of course, on top dial, it's manual everything. I don't subscribe to the idea of using priorities or auto for anything. I don't need to do that. I like to be in full control and make the best judgment for myself. One of the more important things too, I almost forgot this, double card slot function. Recording method, I always do, and I think every professional photographer and videographer should do this the same way, where you have duplicate backups of everything. I've had card failures, you probably will too. If you're shooting a lot of weddings and sessions, it's gonna happen and you're gonna be freaking out when it does. The good news is professional cameras hold 2 cards, and so you can duplicate them in camera so you have 2 copies right away. So I always do it, record the same, and that's it. That's how I set up my camera for weddings and portrait photography. I am by no means a gear expert or a tech guy. I'm your average Joe photographer. So these are my settings. Maybe you saw some stuff you didn't like, or maybe thought I should do something different. Feel free to drop a comment and tell me what you do differently, what you think I should switch to. I like getting new ideas because I'm not a tech guy. I do read through like pretty much the entire manual and decide based off of that what I think is gonna be best for my photography, and just based off of experience, I change things throughout the season. But with that being said, thanks for checking out our video. I hope that this was helpful in getting your camera set up for your next portrait session or wedding. Feel free to hit us up in the DMs. We love connecting with other people. You know, we'd love to help you out. If you got questions that you think I might be able to answer, I'd be more than happy to help you out. Thanks so much for watching our video. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like, drop a comment. We greatly appreciate that. It helps us out a whole bunch. Thanks so much for checking out our video. We're gonna keep on making videos like this and do a whole lot more behind the scenes stuff in the near future. We greatly appreciate you taking the time time out of your day to watch this. We put a lot of time and energy and thought into these videos. So with that, this has been Matt with Forte Films and Stills, wedding and portrait photographer based out of Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. Thanks so much for watching and happy shooting.